Hey, think about the last time you bought something you totally didn't plan to. Or maybe you agreed to a favor you really didn't have time for. What if I told you that wasn't just a random impulse? Yeah, we're about to pull back the curtain on the invisible strings that guide pretty much every decision you make.
So let me ask you this. When you pick a brand, or you decide to trust a stranger, or even just form an opinion, do you really believe that choice is 100% your own?
Well, here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of the time, it really isn't. Your yes is often carefully and silently and psychologically engineered by someone else. And look, this isn't some kind of science fiction movie plot. This is the proven science of persuasion.
So to really get how this all works, we've got to look at the work of one man, a social psychologist who basically decoded the instruction manual for why we say yes. Meet Dr. Robert Cialdini. Now, this wasn't some stuffy research project done in a lab, no way. This guy went deep undercover for 3 whole years. He was selling cars, he was working for telemarketers, he was sitting in on ad agency strategy meetings. He wanted to see how influence really worked, out in the wild. And what he found were these universal principles that quietly run our lives.
Okay, so Cialdini's principles kind of fall into a few key groups. The first set, we can think of them as social levers. These are powerful triggers that tap into our most basic, hardwired need to belong and, cooperate with each other.
It all starts with maybe one of the most powerful forces in human society, reciprocity. We are absolutely wired to return favors. I mean, think about it. Go back thousands of years, sharing resources was the key to survival, right? That instinct is still incredibly potent today. When someone gives us something, we feel this almost irresistible urge to give something back.
And what's just fascinating is how subtle this whole thing can be. Cialdini points to this famous study with waiters. Just giving a single mint with the check didn't really change tips much. But when the waiter offered 2 mints, made eye contact, and said something like, "For you," well, something remarkable happened. Tips skyrocketed by 23%. Just think about that. That tiny, personalized gift triggered a massive sense of obligation. It just goes to show you, it's not the value of the gift that matters. It's the act of giving first.
Okay, so beyond returning favors, we're also driven by this other deep need, commitment and consistency. We are obsessed with being seen as consistent with who we were yesterday. Our brains absolutely hate contradicting ourselves. This classic experiment shows it perfectly. So researchers went door to door and made this tiny request. Hey, would you mind putting this small sticker in your window? Super easy yes for most people. But then, a few weeks later, they came back with this completely absurd request to put a giant, ugly sign on their front lawn. And the result? A staggering 76% of the people who took the little sticker also agreed to the huge sign. Why? Because they'd already committed to the identity of a safe driver, and that small yes just paved the way for a much bigger one. All right, our third social lever kicks in anytime we feel uncertain. It's called social proof. It's that mental shortcut we all use. When in doubt, just look to see what everyone else is doing. It's a deep survival instinct, right? If the whole herd starts running, you run too. You don't stop and ask why.
Cialdini saw this in hotels all the time. The standard sign, the one asking guests to reuse towels, it worked okay. But check this out. When they changed the sign to say, 75% of guests who stayed in this very room reused their towels, boom, reuse jumped by 33%. Just knowing what other people like them did was way more persuasive than any plea to save the environment.
Okay, so we've seen how our social instincts can be, leveraged. But there's a whole other set of principles at play here. These are the mental shortcuts. Think of them as the cognitive cheat codes our brains use to make decisions quickly in a world that's just overwhelming.
And one of the most powerful shortcuts is also the simplest, liking. It's so simple. We are far more likely to say yes to people we know and like. It's why we buy stuff from our friends or from that salesperson who just seems to get us. At the end of the day, rapport is an incredibly powerful form of persuasion.
So what actually creates that feeling of liking? Cialdini breaks it down into 3 key drivers. First, similarity. We like people who are like us. Second, compliments. Genuine appreciation builds rapport like nothing else. And third, cooperation. We trust people who we feel are on our side, working toward a shared goal. See? It's about connection, not perfection.
Another major mental shortcut is our reliance on authority. From the time we're kids, we're taught to respect and obey authority figures, parents, teachers, experts.
This instinct is so deeply wired into us that we often respond to just the symbols of authority, a uniform, a fancy title, a degree on the wall, without ever stopping to question the substance behind them.
And just how far can that go? Well, the famous Milgram experiment gave us a pretty chilling answer. It showed that ordinary people just like you and me, were willing to give what they thought were painful, even dangerous electric shocks to someone else. Why? Simply because a man in a lab coat told them to. It's just a stark reminder of the power of perceived expertise.
All right, the last of the core mental shortcuts plays on a feeling we all know and hate: the fear of missing out, FOMO. This is the principle of scarcity. Opportunities just seem so much more valuable to us when their availability is limited. The idea that we might lose the chance to get something makes us want it like 10 times more. The cookie jar study is the perfect example of this. So, researchers asked people to rate cookies from 2 different jars. One jar was full to the brim with cookies. The other, it had only 2 cookies left. Now, even though the cookies were exactly the same, people consistently rated the ones from the nearly empty jar as more desirable, even tastier. The rarity itself literally created the value.
Okay, so years later, Cialdini actually added a 7th principle, and it's one that's so crucial for our modern, kind of tribal world: unity. This goes way deeper than just liking someone. This is all about shared identity. When we feel like someone is one of us, part of our family, our team, our community, our willingness to agree with them becomes almost automatic. It's the immense power of we.
Okay, so we've decoded all these powerful psychological triggers, but here's the most important part of this whole thing. Understanding them isn't about becoming some kind of manipulator. Not at all. It's about becoming aware and learning how to use them for ethical, effective, and positive communication.
So think of these principles as your personal toolkit for positive influence. You can use reciprocity to build trust by genuinely giving value first. You can use consistency to help yourself and others build positive habits, just starting with those small initial steps. Social proof? That's for building credibility by showing your results, not just talking about them. Liking is for building a real, genuine relationships. Authority is for earning respect through true expertise. Scarcity helps you communicate your real value. And unity? Well, unity is for building powerful, connected communities.
You know, it all boils down to this. If you don't understand the principles of influence, you are being guided by them every single day, whether you know it or not. But by mastering them, you move from being a pawn on someone else's board to becoming a player who actually understands the game.
So, I'm going to leave you with this. You now have the blueprint for human influence. You can see the invisible strings. The only question left is, how will you choose to play the game?